Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Well, I know we're getting some really complimentary posts with regard to our new special podcast called After the Paracast. And this is available for those of you who subscribe to the Paracast Plus. You go to plus.theparacast.com to get more information about the modest monthly fee or modest annual fee. And you get the ad-free version of the radio show, higher resolution copies, so the audio is cleaner and crisper. Except when we have bad cell phone connections with a guest, we can't do much about that. And you also get other privileges. We're adding stuff all the time. Right now we have After the Paracast available exclusively to Paracast Plus members. And last week we talked about what we call reopening old wounds about UFO abductions. Fortunately, the serious feedback I anticipated hasn't come yet. And maybe I shouldn't press that issue. What do you think?
Yeah, let sleeping commentators lie.
But we'll always be politically incorrect. One thing that has brought a lot of discussion, though, is George Hansen's comments about tricksters and their meaning. Indeed.
Yeah, it's there's quite a lively repartee and debate going on at the forums at forum.theparacast.com, where you can ask questions of our guests and also comment about the show and kind of argue some salient points about subjects that we cover here at the Paracast. And this week's George Hansen show thread is pretty fascinating. I've been sitting back taking notes, and I'll be ready to chime in with my 2 cents here at some point. But I think it did spark a lot of debate. It got people thinking. Some people still don't get it. They think the trickster is a person. People can be trickster-like, but the trickster it's very difficult to nail down. It's like trying to nail Jello to the wall, but basically it's a mechanism that supplies anti-structure and creates room for creativity, topples static systems, and is neither here nor there. It's neither young or old, black or white, positive or negative. It's liminal, meaning that it's not in the room or out of the room. It's kind of at the doorway or in the threshold. So these are all very interesting concepts that are being bannered about at the Paracast forum. So tune in.
Would you call the trickster a force? Use the force, Chris.
I'm not sure if it's a force. I think George did a good job of describing that it's a constellation of elements that tend to be anti-structural. They tend to, as I said before, topple static structures, create room for creativity and growth. Oftentimes when things get too entrenched, when powers that be and control structures become too rooted in one spot, the trickster comes along and topples the house of cards. So, it's a cross between a force and a mechanism, I would say, a constellation of various elements that tend to get stronger as the effect of the trickster process unfolds. The trickster tends to get more powerful until it reaches a point of equilibrium, and then it tends to fade back away and remain back in our Western cultural closet, so to speak. Except, we have clowns and masquerade balls and other vestiges of the trickster that still remain in our culture. For the most part, the trickster is out of sight, out of mind.
So we get a yin and we get a yang.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Care to amplify that one, Gene?
A balance. There has to be a sense of balance. When things are moved in one direction or another, something has to correct.
Exactly. It's like a thermostat in the house. When it gets too hot, the AC kicks on. When it gets too cold, the heater kicks on.
So let's just call the trickster the universe's thermostat.
Well, at least it's our planet's thermostat. I can't, speak to the universe, but possibly.
So do you think the trickster, therefore, is planet-specific, or the people over at Zeta Reticuli have their own trickster running around, or the Force, or whatever it is?
Again, it's really hard to say. Anything that I could say about that would be pure speculation on my part.
Well, you're the trickster expert of the planet, right?
No, not by any stretch. You know, I'm more confused now than I was before I started researching Stalking the Tricksters, which was my book before Stalking the Herd. So, you know, I can't really claim any sort of expertise. I don't think there really are any experts on the trickster. The more you think you know about it, the more curveballs and screwballs you tend to have to attempt to hit out of the park. And that's why I've stayed out of the current conversation, because, you know, I think other people are really doing a good job of sort of presenting particular points of view. And so far, I haven't really been asked to for my opinion, so I'm not going to offer it.
Well, that's a good thing. Maybe you'll avoid trouble. Actually, it's funny. The topic that seems to get the most debate, and sometimes it's very severe debate, in our forums has nothing to do with the paranormal, has nothing to do with UFOs, has nothing to do with tricksters, although maybe it does, and that is climate change.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting how there is a very, very, very intense debate over whether there is such a thing as man or human-made climate change?
Yeah. Well, I've been kind of staying out of that one too, actually. I don't want to, because as soon as you comment, half the group is going to jump on you. So I think they're both wrong.
Okay, so there is and there isn't.
I think we're contributing, but I don't think we're. I think the planet has its own mechanism. As soon as it starts to warm up, it releases more methane, and again, you have a thermostat-like condition. The planet has its own built-in tricksterish mechanism that, you know, as the planet gets warmer, then it clicks on the AC, and the Gulf Stream slows down and stops, and then warm water isn't brought up to the northern Arctic regions, and that facilitates, you know, ice ages, and the ice age cools everything down in order to keep everything in equilibrium. So, you know, I think that we're not helping the issue by pumping tons of carbon into the air, but, you know, right now the tundra up in Siberia is melting. The permafrost is melting. That's releasing amazing amounts of ozone depleting gas and methane into the atmosphere. So I think it's a confluence of factors that are contributing. There isn't a single one that you can really say is responsible for climate change. I don't think humans are solely responsible for it. I think we're not helping, but I think the planet has a lot more to do with it than some of your, you know, real Al Gore types out there would like you to believe.
Okay, climate change. Let's move on to sky people, the subject of our episode. We have, this is fascinating. And by the way, this is the second book I've heard of called Sky People. There was a book from the 60s by Brinsley Lipport Trench called The Sky People, one of the classic ancient astronaut books. And this is also called Sky People, but in a different sense, although I guess the results may be the same.
Yeah. Our guest today, Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, spent 7 years traveling around the Maya lands, around Mesoamerica, and collecting stories and legends about non-human entities. And I think it's going to be a fascinating episode. She's quite the storyteller. Unlike her first appearance here, I'm not going to constantly be asking her for documentation, for dates and times, and all those kinds of things that I like to gather when I do my research. We're just going to sit back and talk about the Alukis or Alexis, the little diminutive dwarfs that are found down in the Maya world, and all sorts of interesting creatures that flit about in the shadows down there.
We'll have more to flit about in the shadows with Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, author of Sky People. Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Talk to a sales rep at iWeb.com. Use the promo code TechNightOwl for a special discount.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Mike Stenerson for Midas Resources. At no time in history have precious metals been more important, certainly not in my 22 years in the industry. The dollar has lost over 90% of its value in the last 60 years. No fiat currency has ever survived the government printing presses. Ours is not immune. The time is now to be proactive. 1-800-686-2237, extension 116. Anything tied to the dollar is at risk. CDs, annuities, 401ks, IRAs, stocks, bonds, you name it, so decide. Do you want to leave a legacy of wealth or debt for your family? The choice is yours. Call me at 1-800-686-2237, extension 116. That's 1-800-686-2237, extension 116. Be proactive, not reactive. Call 1-800-686-2237, extension 116.
What good is a Big Berkey water filter?
We get that question a lot here at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. And in a word, the answer is protection. Protection from water main breaks, E. coli contamination, environmental chemical spills, pesticide runoff, chlorine taste and smell, and all forms of fluoride. Plus, Big Berkey water filters are the original gravity water filter system and most trusted on the market for a reason. Tested by multiple independent NSF EPA certified labs, they are the gold standard in water purification. At only 1.7 cents a gallon, a single set of filters can last for 5 to 10 years. That means big savings. Big Berkey, the one that's powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get a Big Berkey today at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. GCN listeners receive 5% off all ceramic filter systems. Visit our website or call 1-877-99-BERKEY. That's 877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
Hi, this is Sophie Winnick, longtime distributor and user of Longevity products. In the last few years, my family went through a crisis. Everything else in my life, including my business, had to be put on the back burner. Thankfully, life is getting back to normal now. But the one thing I never had to worry about was my business and my monthly commission. I've been a distributor for Longevity for over 17 years, since before it was Longevity. And I've got to say, the most amazing thing about this company is the people. While my family was in crisis, other distributors stepped in and helped my customers, simply because that's what Longevity people do, even for people they don't know. For me, it has never been about getting rich. It was about a product I could stand behind, a company I could count on, and a monthly commission check that has never not once been late in 17 years. Longevity is truly a business for everyone, even people who have too much to do. I'm Sophie Winnick. I'm just like you. I have a real life, real ups and downs, but I know I will always have Longevity.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
We welcome back Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, and she has a new book out that came out just some weeks back called Sky People. And I guess from the title, it infers what it's about, but there's a subtitle, Untold Stories of Alien Encounters in Mesoamerica. That's already makes me curious as to what it's all about. Ardy, thank you for joining us on the Paracast again. What led you to take the odyssey that you took to explore these mysteries about advanced people in ancient times?
Well, first of all, Well, I have an interest in indigenous people's perspectives of UFOs and alien encounters. And I have been collecting stories for years among American Indians in the United States, and I collected some stories down in the South Pacific, in New Zealand, and in Australia. And when I retired right before actually my retirement at MSU, I had decided I was going to fulfill a teenage dream. When I was in high school, a teacher handed me a book called John L. Stevens and Frederick Catherwood. And Stevens is considered to be the father of American archaeology, basically. And I read their book, and I was just fascinated with the journey they had taken, because they made this journey, their first journey, in 1839, and they had heard rumors about these ancient cities in the jungle, but there was no proof that they really existed. And so they went there in search of these ancient cities. It resulted in a book called Incidents of Travel in Central America, the Chiapas, and the Yucatan. And they began in Belize, what is now Belize. At that time it was British Honduras. And they traveled through Belize they stopped over in Belize, but they went through Guatemala, Honduras, and into Mexico. And when I turned the book back into the teacher, I said, one of these days I'm going to follow in their footsteps. I'm going to make that trip just like they made it. And she said, well, they have another book called Incidents of Travel in the Yucatan. And she said, why don't you read that too? Well, I just fell in love with these two explorers and made up my mind that I was going to carry out that promise to myself one day. And, of course, as the years passed, a career and family and everything just took precedent over my promise to myself. And I had read von Daniken's work on the ancient astronaut theory of how these cities were built by aliens. And so I just decided that while I made the trip, I was going to see if I could learn about the ancient legends of the sky people and sky gods, and if I could collect stories of alien encounters and UFO sightings from the Maya people. And, of course, I selected my guides and interpreters and drivers, people who themselves had interest in UFOs. When I made the promise to myself and decided that I was going to make this trip, one of the things that I knew I would need would be drivers and interpreters and guides who, first of all, had an interest in what I was doing, and secondly, had connections and were respected people within the area where I was traveling. And I was very lucky to find those kind of people. And I credit them for providing me with access to individuals and introducing me to people. And some of the stories I gathered simply was by chance. Some of them were people in hotels where I was staying, and the word got around that what I was doing there, and they would come to me and tell me they had a story. But the majority of them, I was helped tremendously by the people I hired to work with me.
Now, who does the legwork here? Do you go and...
I do it all.
You do it all. So you have to go in there
do it all.
And make it clear to people that you want to talk about their legends and set things down. And therefore, do you ever think here, though, that when you make this known that maybe a few people just want to tell you stories to get into a book or something?
Well, I don't think so, because they don't want their names used to begin with. They, many of them were illiterate, and so they wouldn't be seeking some kind of fame. And I don't think they were people who were interested in any kind of fame or attention.
The Maya have quite an elaborate and very impressive oral tradition as well. So a lot of these stories have been passed down for many generations.
Yeah. Well, and these some of the ancient stories I tell as a prelude to the chapters are stories that have been there for centuries, you know. And occasionally, like I was in Monte Alban, which was it's a Zapotec ancient site up in Oaxaca, and Stevens and Catherwood never went there, but I wanted to go there out of curiosity and see if I could learn anything, and I hired a driver who was quite familiar with the area and spoke some of the regional languages. And when I was in Monte Alban, I was standing by myself overlooking this. The Monte Alban is built up on a mountain, and I was looking out over the jungle below, and I had three young men approach me. And they had a movie camera, a film, a studio camera. And they asked me what I thought about the burning that was going on by the people that live there in those little villages. And what they do is they slash and burn the jungle, and they plant their crops. And you could see, standing there overlooking the valley, you could see all these little smoke coming up, and that's where they were burning and getting ready to plant their crops. And they were doing, they told me they were with the university. They were students at the university, and they were going to do a film on this. And so they wanted to put me on film, what I thought about this. And I said, oh, no, I don't want to be on your film about what I thought about this.
You know what? Let's do the break now, Ardy. I do not want to be on film anyway, because I don't cast a reflection. I think that's part of the problem.
You have a great face for radio.
I sure do. Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke is author of Sky People. We're framing the background of how she got all these incredible stories. More to come with Gina and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Free from the shackles of corporate America, we're the place for independent thinkers. GCN.
Is there a secret UFO agenda? Do strange creatures from the darkest corners of the mind roam the Earth? Is there evidence for mind control, time travel, or devious government conspiracies? Find out the inside scoop on the latest conspiracies, paranormal activity, and Fortean phenomena when you subscribe to Tim Beckley's Conspiracy Journal. It's jam-packed with stories, special book and DVD promotions, and the best news, it's absolutely free, sent right to your mailbox. Plus, a bonus free email newsletter sent out every Friday. Simply send an email with your name and address to Mr. UFO at webtv.net. That's Mr. UFO at webtv.net. Find out what they don't want you to know.
You pick up the receiver. With your heart racing and sweat dripping from your forehead, you finally muster the courage to dial the number to call into your favorite talk radio show. It rings once, twice, and then...
Hello, it's GCN. What's your name and the state you're calling from?
Surprised you got through, you squeak out.
Jason from Minnesota.
Please hold.
As you patiently wait for your turn, you begin to daydream about being a famous talk radio host and what it would be like to have your own show.
Jason from Minnesota, you're up.
Millions of loyal listeners worldwide waiting to call and talk to you.
Caller, are you there?
Cheering crowds surround you, calling out your name.
Jason! Jason! Going once, twice. Okay, we gotta move on to the next caller.
You blew it.
Huh? Wait, no!
Interact with the host you're listening to right now, online at GCNlive.com. Click on the community link. Engage with other listeners. Ask questions. Start debates. Don't agree with the host? Let them know. Be a part of the community at GCNlive.com.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right. That's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100-foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-91-STEEL. Lock in your price now. Call 866-91-STEEL. That's 866-917-8335.
The human body is extraordinary. Despite all the stresses we inflict upon it, it still works hard to stay in balance. Thousands upon thousands of people rely upon Heart and Body Extract to help their body stay balanced. This excellent 100% natural herbal formula helps maintain healthy blood pressure levels, cleans arteries, promotes good circulation, balances cholesterol, and more. HB Extract, paired with healthy lifestyle choices like good nutrition and exercise, can give you a life free of pain, sickness, and fear. Recapture your youthful vitality and experience your body healing itself with the aid of HB Extract. It's extremely effective and it starts working in just days. Visit hbextract.com to learn more and to read scores of testimonials from satisfied customers. And we've never increased our price in over 10 years. That makes Heart and Body Extract as great a value now as it was the first day we sold it. A healthy heart is a happy heart. Call 866-295-5305 or go to hbextract.com.
This is Leslie Kane, and I'm with the Coalition for Freedom of Information, and you are listening to the Paracast.
Remember to check out plus.theparacast.com for the Paracast Plus subscription service, plus.theparacast.com for a modest monthly or annual fee. You get the exclusive After the Paracast podcast. That sounds like a tongue twister. And, of course, an ad-free version for the show. Okay? Higher resolution, too. Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke is here, framing the way in which she started to hear about these legends about the arrival of the Sky People. Now, Ardy, before we get into some of the stories, isn't it interesting that we have these legends in all cultures around the planet, it seems? So do we assume...
Yes, I think it's very interesting. One of the things that when the scientific age, so to speak, came into being, all of the oral stories that had been handed down for generations were simply set aside as, if you couldn't prove them empirically, then they were worth listening to. And so you have what resulted in that is a loss of a lot of history. And a lot of the indigenous people around the world have kept those stories, and many of them are unknown. And when you get out in the field and you start talking to people, you start hearing these legends. And these young men that I met in Monte Alban, when they found out what I was doing, they suggested, well, perhaps they should follow me around because what I was doing was a lot more interesting than what they were doing. And so they began to tell me about a village where was an ancient story about a sky man, a man who came from the stars, and he came on a beam of light. And he entered the village. He could terraform the earth. He helped the people build a city. He taught them how to do different things. and in construction, and he married a local woman. And they had a child. They had a son, and when that son got old enough to assume the duties of taking care of the people, he went back to the same spot where he arrived on the beam of light, and a beam of light came down and took him to the stars, and he was never seen again. And these young men told me this story, and so I went in search of this village and the site, and it's a fairly unknown site, you know. And, it's right along the side of a highway. I mean, if you're driving by, you'd never even know it existed. But since I was looking for it, I was able to find it. And I was talking to the man at the kiosk there, and he said, well, you know, he would take me around and show me the site. And one of the things that was very interesting to me is they had a carved in stone this man that came from the stars. They had his image carved in a stone. And he was wearing goggles, which I found highly unusual. And he was also had what appeared to be a breathing apparatus. And I could see that, you know, where people would come up with some of the theories that they've come up with. You know, and when I talked to this man, I said, well, do the star people ever come back to your village? And he said, oh, yes, they do come back. And he told me about how they come back and they visit with the elders in their village. And they come back, and as though they pay homage to, they go to the site, that the ancient site, as though they are paying homage to the ancestors that were there.
So this is happening, that's here and now we're talking about.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the goggles kind of reminds me of some of the depictions of the Toltec.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It's kind of interesting because some of those cultures down there, you know, the Toltec and I'm trying to think, you know, had a tremendous influence on the Mayan culture too, you know, and introduced the savagery of you know, the decapitation and tearing out the hearts and all that sort of thing to the Maya culture.
Prior to the introduction of the Atlatl and the Toltec and warfare, it was the Mayan aristocracy and the royal class and the priest class that would do the bloodletting, and they would do it on themselves. Occasionally,
right. And they didn't do the tearing out of the heart and the things of that nature.
Well, they did, but it was more of a. It wasn't like the Aztec later on, where, you know, hundreds, even thousands of people would be lined up, and this would happen. It was done only out of kind of necessity as a last resort, but they did sacrifice people. They sacrificed captured warriors from other cities. They'd agree. Oh, yeah. They'd agree to exchange prisoners, and it was quite an honor to be selected as one of the sacrificial victims. Their warfare was more of a stylized, almost kabuki theater, really, based on some of my research. And it wasn't until, as you mentioned, that the Toltec introduced, you know, the taking of sacking of cities, raping and pillaging and all that sort of thing. Prior to that, that was not part of the Olmec or Mayan culture, to my knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I find the Maya today to be a very peaceful people and a very humble people. You know,
I couldn't believe it. I was watching a History Channel show back in 2009, I think, or 2008. And they were talking about the Maya and how they went extinct in the 1300s. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The Maya are probably the largest group of indigenous Americans. There's over 4 million of them. And
there's over 15 million of them. You know, if you include Guatemala, Belize, Honduras and Mexico. There's 15 million Maya.
Yeah. I might be thinking of just Quiche Maya.
I think you're probably thinking of maybe Quiche Maya, or they're divided into different language groups, but they're all Maya. They speak dialect.
All of Guatemala.
I had one driver who spoke 6 different dialects of the Maya language.
Yeah, but to say that it's extinct, I mean that's inexcusable.
Well, all the one of the interesting things that the elders told me there, they said, we arrived here with our knowledge. We didn't get our knowledge from someplace else. We didn't have somebody come to us and give us our knowledge. We came to this place with our knowledge. So when the Spaniards came, we didn't consider them gods. And we didn't consider them gods like the Aztec, for example, because we did not consider them as being from an advanced civilization, because we were from an advanced civilization, and we were more advanced than they were. And they, they talk simply. Well, you look at the Lacadoan Maya that were not even discovered until 1958. They lived so far into the jungle, they just left and went into the jungle, and they still have their little villages there where they still practice the native religion. They do not send their kids to outside schools. I mean, they live the old way.
We have the old way here to express, and we'll get back with Ardy Sixkiller Clarke and Sky People. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
From our family to yours, have a very Merry Christmas. We are the Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
The experts at Web.com want to build your business a successful website for free, just like we did for these current Web.com customers.
We've used and looked at other website designers, but there's nobody better than Web.com.
Web.com can build your website in as little as 7 days free. Plus, we'll promote it on all the major search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing. If after 30 days you're happy, we'll continue to provide promotion, hosting, support, and maintenance, all for one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing.
If you're in business today and you don't have a web presence, you won't be taken seriously.
Call right now and you'll also get a free .com or .net domain name for your new website, powered by VeriSign, the world's leading domain name provider.
Call 800-297-0154. That's 800-297-0154.
No upfront charge for site build, after which ongoing fees apply. Rights to site are relinquished when canceled. Domain included during active service, after which fees apply.
That's 800-297-0154.
Alex Jones here. For the last 2 years, I've been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to design a nutraceutical formulation that has truly life-changing health benefits. So many other formulations out there contain toxic ingredients, synthetic additives, and even GMOs. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected perfected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. Now is the time to secure ancient defense for you and your family. Visit InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned into the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
So we have here societies that keep to themselves, Ardy, from what you're telling here. And they don't interact as much with the outside world. So how are they?
Not too much. I saw some. One of the funniest things that happened, is I had a Maya guide and Palenque, and he says to me, "You want to see a real Indian?" And he pointed out this Lacandon Indian, and of course they still dress in their traditional dress. Everybody wears the long gowns, and
aren't they the direct descendants of Pakal?
They. I don't think so. They don't claim to be. They are. They're located quite a distance from Palenque, I see them once. When I was in San Cristobal, I met with a father and son who were from that group, and then I was able to interview one of the tradesmen that was selling bows and arrows to tourists in Palenque. But very few of them ever leave. If you go to some of the, there are two historical sites that they claim as theirs, and they actually, are the ones in charge of those sites. And you can't even drive up to those sites because they come and meet you, and they take you in. And those drivers, although they're from that group, they dress in Western clothes. And one of the elders was telling me that, his grandchildren came running over and would look at me and smile and run away, very shy, and then come back. And he says, they're very curious about you. He said, and they're very curious about the people who come here. But he said, we worry about that, he said, because we'd like to keep our old ways.
Which two sites are those? Is it Bonampak and Yachitlan?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Bonampak is where I was, talking to the elder, and he was telling me how, and the children, just run freely. And I mean, it's their play area, the plaza there. Have you ever been there?
A couple times.
Yeah.
The beautiful murals. They're the only real remaining full-color murals left in the Maya world. Yep.
Sounds like a really fascinating journey here. But
and it took place over, several years.
Sure. So
and,
you said you drove 12,000 miles to do this. I assume it's a number of trips. You didn't just get in the car and come back to yourself.
One one trip I did take that was over 3,000 miles, just that trip alone. But I was on a 2-month trip, and I went all the way, because I went up to Oaxaca, traveled through the Chiapas up to Oaxaca and made several side trips from there, and went over to Puebla, and which was very close to Mexico City, and so, you think of a driving trip across the Sierra range of mountains, you're going through all these different ecosystems, and, it was quite a trip.
Now, just to put this in perspective, was there much variation in the stories you heard of the sky person or the sky people? Or was it all remarkably consistent wherever you went?
Well, I think all the stories were fairly different. I think when I think about the stories that American Indians tell, or Indians from the United States, as opposed to America, they consider themselves American Indians too, or Amerindians, because they're from Mesoamerica. They I think, if anything, probably religion has more of an influence on their interpretation in some cases of what they've seen. Pentecostal religions are making an inroad into some of these small villages, and so some of them told me that the preacher had told them they were from the devil, and so there was a more fear, more superstition than what I found among Indians in the United States. But the culture is so old there, and that some of the stories they would tell me, they would talk about things that had happened in the past and things that are happening now, and they would kind of meld the two together. And I know that I was at one site where the handprints were on the facade of this only standing building in this site. And this site basically had no name because it hadn't been excavated, and at one time the government had said that had built a caretaker's hut there, and they were talking about excavating the site, but they hadn't excavated it. And so we had my driver and I had stopped there, have a little picnic, and this elderly gentleman approached us and identified himself and said that he looked after this site, and he invited us to his little place, and he told me that he had once been in the United States, and so he spoke English quite well, and I gave him some books. He had a lot of English novels and things, and I gave him some of my books, and he said, for that, I will show you around the site. He said, I have to pay you back. So he took me around the site, and there was a facade of an ancient temple, it looked like. And there were handprints all across the top of it. And then he began to tell me that those handprints, he said, a lot of people interpret them and say the handprints were left by those who built the structure, and he says that's not true at all. And he went on to explain that these handprints were from the people who traveled the universe and who left their handprints because they were the collectors of knowledge and the givers of knowledge. And so he was particularly interested in setting that record straight. And he talked about the things he had learned from the shining people of the Red Hand, which is what he called them, the shining people of the Red Hand, and that they left their handprints so people would know that came after them, that they had been there and they had collected the knowledge. And the same thing with, Palenque. The stories I was told by the elders there was that Palenque was to be the storehouse of all the knowledge. But after it was built, the workers refused to leave. And so the knowledge could not be stored there. And so Palenque then just became another city where, several thousand people made it home. But it originally was designed to be the place of knowledge. And I thought it was interesting because I talked to a Hopi elder several years ago who told me that there is a city in the south that is red. And he said that city is the keeper of all the knowledge. In that city is where all the knowledge of the world is kept. Well, of course, Palenque is south of Hopi land, and so I couldn't help but think of that while I was there, because at one time Palenque was painted red, the entire city. So that was a common practice among the Maya to paint their cities red. In many cases, they used mica, and so that the city would look like a city of gold from the distance in the sunlight. And he told me that the Shining people told him that there are 67 solar systems in a confederation, and that spacecraft visit the Earth every day. There are hundreds of spacecraft. But he said that right now they're circling the Earth, but our governments don't have the technology to see them.
I'm going to ask you about that in a moment. That's an interesting concept. Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, author of Sky People, is here. And we have our own sky person, Chris O'Brien.
You're quiet over there.
With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Independently leading the way for the nation. Compelling talk for every political persuasion. We are GCN. We love that you're passionate about GCN. And whether you're a listener, a business owner, or a radio industry professional, we've redesigned the new GCN newsletter to keep you in the know. Get updates on your favorite GCN shows and hosts. Go to GCNlive.com and click on the banner in the upper left corner. Just for signing up, you're automatically entered for monthly giveaways. Start receiving your newsletter today. The future of talk radio. GCN.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
For over 5 years, you've been hearing about the Berkey guy, so you may know a few things about him. For example, you are well aware of the superior quality and effectiveness of Berkey water filters and accessories. But did you know the Berkeys have had independent lab tests done to prove just how effective they are? It's true, and he can email you the test results. Just visit GoBerkey.com. You may also know that the Berkey guy has helped tens of thousands of people get better prepared. Now here's something you may not know. GoBerkey.com has amazing specials and deals all the time on a wide variety of survival and preparedness products. Most ready to ship same day. Visit the Berkey Guy at GoBerkey.com and be sure to click the red Products on Sale Now button. You can always call toll-free 877-886-3653. Again, that's 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com, home of the Berkey Guy.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
On the Paracast with Gene and Chris, we have Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. And you're telling us here that we don't have the technology to see the spaceships that are out there. Now, I'm going to sound like I'm being crazy here or being silly or I'm being dismissive. I'm not. Are they using, because we're brought up in the Star Trek generation, cloaking devices of some sort?
Well, you know, he didn't go into that, and I'm not sure. I'm sure he's never seen Star Trek, so I don't think that he just said to me that there are hundreds of spaceships that circle the Earth every day, and our governments do not have the technology to see them. He said, they tell me that their people actually live on the Earth watching and helping man.
And helping?
Helping, he said. He said that they perform many tasks, he told me, and he said, but they never reveal themselves. And he said that they're gone now, and they come in 16-year cycles. And he said soon they will come again. And he said they left in 2000, so they'll return in 2016. And he said then they will stay for 16 years, and then they will leave for 16 years.
Based on
he was under the assumption that they went to other places during that 16-year absence.
Now, based on what you're saying here, are we assuming a single race of beings or entities from a single civilization or many civilizations?
He was talking about what he called, you know, the shining people of the red hand.
Shining people of the rosy palm?
Pardon?
It was a bad joke.
Oh. Well, I think he called, they identified themselves as the shining people. He told me the red handprints were left by those people, so that's why he called them the shining people of the red hand.
Yeah, I was kind of doing a play on words, saying the shining people of the rosy palm.
People, he said, in their true state, they're actually balls of light. And he said it's only when they assume human form can you see them. And he says otherwise you're blinded by them. And he said many people never know they have met them. They see balls of light, he said, not realizing they're actually seeing a living form.
Sort of an energy being then, it sounds like.
Right.
Okay. And then they can manifest themselves in any way they want?
In any way they want. In fact, he talked about that. He said that they had told him that wherever they were, whatever world they visited, they assumed the form of that place. And he told me that he also said their lifespan was like 800 years. And that they said that we were the only warring planet in this solar system, but there are other planets that were, but they're not in this solar system. And he said that, trying to think, he said there's some planets where inhabitants still live in the Dark Ages, they told him. But there are other planets where people are so far advanced that they can assume almost any form and choose any form simply by using their minds.
I would say that our planet is in the Dark Ages still.
Okay, from that description, I would say so too.
Now, let's look at this in detail in reference to other civilizations here. So we have different concepts of sky people, advanced beings visiting us in ancient times, and you have various variations in the major religions about these advanced beings, gods from space or whatever. How do we get to the core reality if every culture has their own interpretation or variation on the theme?
Well, because I think that star people came, visited this earth on all parts of this earth, and are still visiting this earth. They just don't make themselves known to us, like he said. They could be right next to you and you wouldn't know.
So basically, I can be having lunch at the local deli, and the person next to me is a human who might really be a star person.
Yes, could be. I had a man tell me this is a U.S. American Indian man, tell me that he said, have you ever met somebody who was kind and calm and reserved and never interfered or never argued or just kind of let things go by and spread nothing but happiness around you? And I said, yeah, I've met a couple of people like that. And he said, well, you probably met a star person.
So you know them by their attitudes and their behavior.
Well, that's what he said. So I don't know. That's what he told me. In Palenque, I was told by a Lacandon Indian that the reason we don't see them anymore is because we've lost the ability to see.
In what sense? Do we have to have an attitude change or what?
Well, he said at one time everybody had an ability to see the invisible, is what he told me. And he said, they're here, but they're invisible. And if you don't have the ability to see them, you never know they're here.
So they can be standing next to you then and they would be invisible?
Right.
Okay. Is that true with the craft in which they travel, or do they even use craft?
So I've been told, it's not in this book, but a couple of years ago, I interviewed a man who told me that there was a universal highway, and that once you enter the universal highway, you just think of the place you want to be, and then you're there instantly.
Sounds like a mental wormhole.
And he said that that's how they travel all these great distances. And he was telling me about an encounter he had in Iraq when he was in the military, and he said that, you know, right after he finished basic training, he was shipped to Iraq, and he no more than landed there than they were sent to this remote area where rumor had it that Saddam Hussein was hiding out. And he said when they got there, they encountered an ambush, and he said he was crouched down behind a building, and a sniper was on a roof across from him, on a rooftop across from him, and he said he was trying to figure out how he was going to get to safety so he could, and he said he stumbled into this vacant building, and all of a sudden he's in this tunnel, and he enters the tunnel and is greeted by this being that offers to take him away from this battle. And when he told the being that he couldn't do that because, first of all, it would be desertion, and secondly, he couldn't leave his comrades, the being was very interested in why he felt such loyalty to his buddies. They seem to be totally unfamiliar with that concept, he said.
Did he describe what the being looked like?
Let's do our break here, and then on the other side, we'll find out the answer to Chris's question about what the being looked like. Our guest is Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. The book is called Sky People, but more than that, it's got a subtitle, and that subtitle is Untold Stories of Alien Encounters in Mesoamerica. And we're hearing a lot of fascinating tales on this episode. We'll get into more of it in a moment. And please don't forget to visit plus.theparacast.com. That's plus.theparacast.com. That's for our premium service, Paracast Plus, where you get an ad-free version of the show, plus the exclusive After the Paracast podcast. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
Quantitative easing, unemployment at depression levels, Europe financial system falling apart, China getting out of U.S. treasuries. At the end of 2008, the time of TARP, the national debt was at $11 trillion, gold trading around $850 per ounce. Close to 2012, the national debt exceeded $16.4 trillion, gold doubled to $1,600 per ounce. The $20 trillion threshold for the national debt is inevitable. Politicians in Washington have a ferocious appetite for spending and stimulus. What's worse, a printing press to finance. 100 years ago, we had a gold standard to limit this madness, but now you have to adopt your own gold standard. Don't be fooled with paper promises. Get Midas Resources 10 Reasons to Buy Gold free by calling 800-686-2237. Understanding the gold and silver market may be the only insurance you could have to avoiding the next economic crisis. Call 1-800-686-2237 and order your free copy. Again, that's 800-686-2237.
The human body is extraordinary. Despite all the stresses we inflict upon it, it still works hard to stay in balance. Thousands upon thousands of people rely upon Heart and Body Extract to help their body stay balanced. This excellent 100% natural herbal formula helps maintain healthy blood pressure levels, cleans arteries, promotes good circulation, balances cholesterol, and more. HB Extract, paired with healthy lifestyle choices like good nutrition and exercise, can give you a life free of pain, sickness, and fear. Recapture your youthful vitality and experience your body healing itself with the aid of HB Extract. It's extremely effective and it starts working in just days. Visit hbextract.com to learn more and to read scores of testimonials from satisfied customers. And we've never increased our price in over 10 years. That makes Heart and Body Extract as great a value now as it was the first day we sold it. A healthy heart is a happy heart. Call 866-295-5305 or go to hbextract.com.
What good is a Big Berkey water filter?
We get that question a lot here at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. And in a word, the answer is protection. Protection from water main breaks, E. coli contamination, environmental chemical spills, pesticide runoff, chlorine taste and smell, and all forms of fluoride. Plus, Big Berkey water filters are the original gravity water filter system and most trusted on the market for a reason. Tested by multiple independent NSF EPA certified labs, they are the gold standard in water purification. At only 1.7 cents a gallon, a single set of filters can last for 5 to 10 years. That means big savings. Big Berkey, the one that's powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get a Big Berkey today at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. GCN listeners receive 5% off all ceramic filter systems. Visit our website or call 1-877-99-BERKEY. That's 877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke joining us. Would you answer Chris's question about their appearance?
He said that there was a glow about them, but that they were humanoid form, about the same height as he was, and he said he was about 6 feet tall. That he only saw one, but he did see a craft parked. He said that once he entered this tunnel, and he said it was very cool, and it was such a reprieve from the heat outside, and he said they had a craft there. Wasn't a huge, but he said the tunnel opened up into an area that was like 2 or 3 football fields, he said. And when he told them that he couldn't go with them, when he told the being he couldn't go with him, the being said, well, we'll return tomorrow. And if you change your mind, we'll take you home. And And he said that he left, and he said he was tempted to go back, but he never did.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Travis Walton's experience where he was aboard his ship and he went, I think, down a corridor into a room that opened up, and it was a huge like hangar that was impossibly large for the size of the craft that he thought he was aboard. That there was some sort of weird, either he was brought somewhere else and wasn't aboard the craft again, or there was some sort of weird size dilation aboard this craft that enabled it to have such a large space within such a small craft.
Well, I had a pilot tell me, and he wasn't Indian, but he was a pilot out here in one of these small airports in Montana. And he told me of being abducted by this enormous spacecraft, and that when they took him and his little plane, and that when he was inside this thing, it was like a warehouse, and there were other planes and other vehicles there. And he said it was simply enormous, this craft that he was in.
Yeah, let me look at our question bank here, and we'll go ahead and fire some questions out at you. When we announced your post, we put up a thread at forum.theparacast.com, Ardy, that allows our listeners to ask questions, and we have a number of them here. One that I have before I get to our listener questions has to do with the legend of the Temple of the Magicians in Uxmal.
Oh, yeah.
And that particular interesting structure, legend has it, was built in one night by these small kind of dwarf type entities that are called, I think, Alushis or Alekis. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Alushas. Right, and that these beings came and actually literally built this huge complex in a single night. Did you investigate that particular story at all?
I did. I talked to the elders about that story, and several different elders. And of course, the story varied a little bit, but there was a prophecy that there would be a ruler of Uxmal who would not be born of woman, and the story was that this dwarf was hatched from an egg by a witch, and he challenged the king of Uxmal, and the king told him, well, if you can build a pyramid overnight, you can become the king of Uxmal. And then mysteriously the next day, this pyramid was built, and it's unlike anything that's built in that part of of any of the Maya temples. I mean, it's just amazing. It's kind of a round structure. You've been there, right?
Yes, I have.
And you know that it's an unusual pyramid, and but some of the elders told me that he had help from flying machines that brought all the materials and helped him build it. Others did. The story just ended there. They had nothing to add.
Okay, well, I have some questions here. We're going to start with some questions from Psychedelic Alchemist. And he said that he really enjoyed your first book, and he's definitely going to be picking up a copy of the new book. But his first question is, how much credence do you give to Tales of Star People? How do you differentiate between reports that are genuine and those that are just fabricated, or maybe stories that have been passed down and then altered through time?
Well, the only reason I collect the ancient stories is because I'm interested in, the historical part of the Star People stories, because we have them in American Indians have many stories of visitors from the sky, and so I find this just interesting to collect those stories, and they may have changed over time, but they are their ancient stories that are passed on orally, and anytime, oral tradition does allow for some changes, and that it probably occurs. As far as the credibility of people, I hate to say that I'm this person that can know if you're lying or not, but I am a psychologist, and I have a pretty good read on people. And I think in all the people who have ever told me stories, I only felt that 2 of them weren't telling the truth. I was pretty sure they weren't telling the truth. The people that I interview have no reason to lie. I don't use real names. I don't, I'm not into that of letting people know who they are, because they would then be bombarded with, other researchers going there and trying to find out specific information. I'm a social scientist, so they don't have to show me marks in where a spacecraft landed. I'm just interested in their stories, and I tell the stories as they tell them to me. And I believe the stories to be true. And it's just what I do.
Well, that kind of leads me to his second question, and that is, have you ever encountered any hard evidence besides witness testimony that points to the reality?
Yeah, a couple of times, I've been taken to places where there were burned circles in the ground where, in my first book, if he read that, he probably remembers the story of Leland, where Leland took me out into his field and showed me where this spacecraft would hover over his field. And there was a burned circle in the ground and on the ground, and he said, nothing will grow here. And then car tracks leading to the highway, and he said, I don't have an automobile. No one around here has an automobile. And that's the automobile they let down, and drive people. It comes with beings in it, and it leaves.
Probably a 1954 black Cadillac.
Yeah.
Let's break right here. We have Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke with us. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
The nation's largest independently owned and operated talk radio network. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right. That's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100 foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-91-STEEL. Lock in your price now. Call 866-91-STEEL. That's 866-917-8335.
It's that time of year again, and you know what that means. Cold and flu season. But don't worry, herbalhealer.com has you and your loved ones covered with our safe and natural products. Cold and flu fighters like beta-glucans, olive leaf antiviral capsules, grapefruit seed extract, HHA 4-herb capsules, elderberry power, and respirate. And don't forget about Oregacillin for the lungs, normally $34.95, on sale now for only $25. Vitamin D3 120 count soft gels, only $9. Whole body and homeopathic detoxes for the lungs, kidneys, liver, lymph, and brain, normally $26.95, now just $20. HerbalHealer.com also offers correspondence courses to teach you how to handle your health naturally. And as always, new customers get a free 128-page catalog with your order. Visit HerbalHealer.com and click the Winter Specials button to save on our natural cold and flu fighting products. HerbalHealer.com, healing the world with nature, one person at a time, since 1988.
We all know that Berkey water purification systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey water filtration systems. The Berkey Light systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light system today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at GoBerkey.com. That's GoBerkey.com today.
This is Jacques Vallée. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
So they're not driving around in black Cadillacs then?
Well, they're driving around in some kind of a black automobile is all he knew, you know. It's a big automobile, he said.
Well, that could be a Cadillac.
It could be. It could be a Buick. It could be an Oldsmobile.
Right. But chances are they go in style. So, okay, well, here's another question from Psychedelic Alchemist. And, of course, he did post his question at our question thread at forum.theparacast.com, where you can get your questions answered by our esteemed guests that we have here. Okay, question 3. He wants to know if these tales of sky gods or star people are just myths that hide a deeper, more down-to-earth explanation.
I don't believe so. I think these are accurate events of what occurred. I think we've been visited by star people for, since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's imaginary or. I think that's one of the problems. I think that's happened over the centuries is that when you approach things scientifically, and you say, "I've got to have evidence, I've got to have proof," or "I don't believe it," what you're doing is you're throwing out all of the narratives and the history of people for generations, and I choose not to do that. And now, NASA is paying a lot of attention to these stories. When I was at university, we had some visitors from NASA come to MSU, and the dean called me up to his office and introduced them to me, and what they were interested in were Indian legends about the stars and star visitors. And if you go on the NASA website, you'll find that they have a whole section there devoted to a Native American connection to the cosmos. So you've got people like NASA, you've got a lot of modern-day archaeologists are starting to look at these stories and saying, hey, this bears out in what we're finding, what we're uncovering. The stories that have been disregarded for a couple of centuries all of a sudden are making a lot of sense. And so I'm just a believer, and I believe the stories are accurate.
Well, when the authorities start taking it seriously, you have to assume it's more than just a bunch of tall tales passed on from father to son, etc.
Well, and they were even talking about going up to the Blackfeet Indian Reservation here in Montana and building some kind of a center for the collection of Indian knowledge and about the stars and the universe, and bringing all that information together. And I had given them some names, of course, the travel chairman. I knew him quite well, and some of my graduate students would be good contacts with them, and they actually went there, but nothing ever came of any building or anything. So there is a tremendous interest there, and I think that in disregarding it for the past 200 or 300 years since scientific knowledge became more prominent, because if you couldn't prove something, the scientists didn't want to hear it. I mean, that was just stories to them. That were
proving it is one thing. Replicating that data is a whole nother matter.
Well, yeah, how are you gonna prove any of that? And it's the same thing today. You look at all the researchers today. They go out and they want proof. Well, that's one of the reasons why people don't talk to them, because they say, "What? Where's the indentation in the ground? Where's this? Where's that?" They don't have anything. They're telling you what happened, and I think that's the reason why this information hasn't been forthcoming earlier, is because people just don't take the time to listen and to collect the stories. And that's what I like to do.
Well, let me ask you here, just theorizing for a moment. We have all these reports, descriptions, possibly anecdotes of the presence of sky people. Is there anything we could do today, if they're still around, to try to gather evidence that scientists would accept?
I don't know. That's a good question, because what does MUFON look for? They always look for evidence, don't they? What do all the leading writers and researchers look for? They always look for evidence. Somebody said to me, "Well, why didn't you take a picture with your camera?" I don't even have not my camera. I don't even have with my telephone. I don't even have a telephone that takes a picture. I have one of those cheap telephones because I'm not interested in that kind of technology. I just have a track phone, and it serves me well. And so I'm not in. When I travel, I travel very lightly, and I try to, in many places, I try to dress like the women there. I am always try to not stand out so much. Obviously, I do stand out. They know I'm a stranger, or they've heard of who I am, But on the other hand, I try to blend into the community as much as possible. I participate in celebrations. I participate in dancing and going into homes and sharing food with them, and they're sharing food with me. And that's how I get stories that other people have failed to get.
So the point is, they trust you. They feel you're one of them.
Yeah,
you're sympathetic.
I think that's the big thing.
So if someone comes in there with a skeptical attitude, dismissive attitude, they're not going to say anything.
Yeah, when I asked them what they thought of von Daniken and his, all of his books and about his assessment, and they said, well, he's just a white man making money off of us, but he never asked us what we thought. And I think I was probably the first one that really asked, and I think that in itself was, made them feel good about talking to me. I met with one elder who who told me, he said, I keep everything very low key, he says. He said, I never carry a weapon, only a machete, because if I ever get caught by the police, they won't have anything to charge me with. and several elders told me that they said, you know, the same thing that happened to the Maya could happen to the USA. 3,000 years from now, your Statue of Liberty could be called the goddess of fire. You have all kinds of gods in New York City. This one elder told me, he says, I've been to New York City, and I spoke at the UN, and there are all kinds of gods. And he's talking about all these statues that he saw around New York City. So there are all kinds of gods there. And he says, 3,000 years from now, when this civilization is gone and a new one is coming along, they will have all these different, and their archaeologists are going to be digging up the Statue of Liberty, and they'll call her the goddess of fire.
All right. Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, author of Sky People, is here. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Great minds think alike. The network for the independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Talk to a sales rep at iWeb.com. Use the promo code TechNightOwl for a special discount.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
The knowledge of the ancients, tried and true, trusted herbs and extracts fused with the latest nutraceutical science. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. For the last 2 years, our team has been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to develop the ultimate nutraceutical formulation. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. Now is the time to secure Ancient Defense for you and your family. Visit ancientdefense.com or call 888-253-3139. That's ancientdefense.com.
Hi, this is Steve Sanchez, and based on a recent study, it was found that 57 million Americans had legal issues over the last 12 months, but only 60% of those studied sought out the services of a lawyer. Why? In a nutshell, affordability. Well, my friends at Legal Shield have created a solution that can help you not if, but when you need an attorney. For as little as $17 per month, Legal Shield will provide you unlimited access to qualified attorneys at an accomplished law firm for advice and counsel on legal issues, no matter how serious or trivial. For over 40 years and with 1.4 million families across North America, Legal Shield can help you, the loyal GCN listener. Representatives are standing by now to answer your questions, so call them now at 1-855-340-SAVE. That's 1-855-340-7283, or visit them at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com.
Results will vary from case to case. Do you have relatives and friends that are convinced there is no need ever to prepare for any kind of emergency? Are these also folks you buy Christmas presents for? At 30dayfoodsupply.com, we can solve both of these problems at the same time. Go to 30dayfoodsupply.com or call 541-229-0010. We can ship your Christmas presents directly to them. Choose from our original $99 30-day food supply, our long-term storage vegan burger mixes, and other oatmeal, soups, porridges, beans, and granolas for everyday use. All products are non-GMO, MSG-free, and vegetarian. Most are gluten, soy, and nut-free. Call 541-229-0010 today. Oregon Trail Foods and 30dayfoodsupply.com keep prices low, cutting out the middleman by buying directly from their producers in Oregon. Remember, only $10 ships your entire order to the lower 48. Visit the website 30dayfoodsupply.com. Call 541-229-0010. 30dayfoodsupply.com. 541-229-0010.
This is Jerome Clarke, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
With Gene and with Chris on the Paracast, we have Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, and we're going to solve the mystery where half a segment suddenly upped and disappeared. So we're going to have to repeat the word. Okay, so we're talking about what might happen 3,000 years from now, where our civilization doesn't survive for any reason, Dr. Clarke, and therefore we pick up the artifacts, the remnants, the relics. They have a lot of movies like that, of course, where we look at the remnants of our civilization and it doesn't last. And you kind of look at construction nowadays, just normal homes, and within 20 or 30 years, they're pretty well shot. I mean, they won't be here in 100 years, let alone 3,000.
Well, because we don't make them, we don't make too many of them of stone. You know, I mean, we build our houses mainly of wood. So if you go to the villages of the Maya today, you'll see they build their houses of stone.
They were smarter than we were.
Well, at least they withstand hurricanes. You know, they don't wash away and of course, you know, when you go into these villages and you go to a Maya house, you know, some of them still live in the old traditional homes where they, you know, they built their houses out of these sticks, and the air would flow through, and of course you still see that. You see also see more of the cinder block homes. There's no floor. The floor is dirt. The women cook on every home I was in, the women just had rocks and a piece of tin across and a little fire underneath, and that's how they cooked. And many of them had pigs in the backyard and a lot of different kinds of fruit trees. They lived a very simple life, but they were very happy people. And you know, many times they would take me around and show me this herb and this is what we use it for. And they even showed me in the jungle what plant to take to make alcohol. They said this is what we use to make alcohol. So
okay.
But it was. I think that, you know, the point is that when we are on the outside and we're trying to define a people and we take nothing that they say as fact, it's all just myths and stories. And then we look at that civilization that has fallen 3,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago, and we say, oh, this is what they were doing, or this is how they lived, or this is what they thought. And what the elder was pointing out to me, he said, you know, I've spoken at the UN. He said, I've been to New York City. And he said, you have a lot of gods in New York City. And he was talking about all the statues that were around New York City. And he said, one day when this civilization is gone, someone will dig up the Statue of Liberty and will call her the goddess of fire. And I thought that was kind of appropriate, is probably what will happen.
It's a question of how long this civilization will last and what's going to bring it down.
Right.
Yeah, well, that brings up an interesting point about the Spanish when they encountered what they considered to be the work of the devil, a lot of the idolatry and the languages and the codices, most, if not all, were burnt. But lately I've been hearing rumblings. My brother has quite a very well-established travel service to the Maya lands. And one thing that they've heard rumored is that the Maya were able to squirrel away quite a number of codices that have the lost knowledge of the Maya, and they've been hiding them in caves in Guatemala, around Sheila and other places towards the Pacific side of Guatemala, the Pacific coast. And let's talk.
Wasn't that something that Eric von Daniken wrote about? And then he said that this man took him in, and this man said that did not happen, that it wasn't true. And von Daniken, he completely denied everything that von Daniken was saying, that there was that did not exist, and he didn't. And von Daniken has since repented, I think, and said, no, he didn't go into the cave, but that's what I've read.
Right, but that was back in the early 70s. This is all around the time period of 2012 and the end of this particular cycle of the Mayan long count calendar. And there is some tantalizing rumors within certain aspects of the ceremonial community of the Maya, the timekeepers, that some of this knowledge has been saved, and it's the most closely guarded secret of the culture now, and that these...
Well, it could be, it could be. I don't think it's something they're going to share.
No, they learned their lesson the first time.
I don't think they're ready, if it does exist, because I've participated in several of their ceremonies there, and, they have held on to those ancient traditions. And there seems to be, in almost every village that I was in, there seemed to be at least one person that knew how to conduct those ancient religions and those ancient ceremonies. I'm sorry. And I remember that, what they have 9 bowls that they use in their ceremonies, and they position them in a certain way, and they put corn in them, and they drink corn milk as a part of the ceremony. They chant in the Maya language, and they told me the reason for this is that they are talking to the people in the heavens, in the sky, and that is their language, that they speak their language, and so they have to talk to them in their language. I participated in another ceremony that was supposed to be able to. The priest told me that he would be able. He saw me and he approached me, and out of nowhere, and he said, I need to perform a ceremony for you because I want to find out what your Nawe is. Well, I was to discover that is, if I'm going to be successful in what I'm trying to do. And he said, I feel very compelled to do this for you. And so he took me up on this little hill, and he performed this ceremony. And my guide explained to me that he lit this huge fire. And the guide explained to me that and he was chanting in Maya too, and talking to the star people, and he explained that the fire reaches to the heavens and the voices, and the fire carries the voices to the heavens, and then the smoke brings the voices of the star people back to Earth, and they tell him, what my future will be.
I'm going to ask a silly question based on what you just said. Is there a way for us to contact the star people and say, come on down here, we got a heap of trouble?
Well, from what I understand, the Star people practice a doctrine of non-interference, and so I don't think they're likely, at least the ones that could help us. That's not talking about because I've had elders tell me that. I said, well, what about those who abduct people? And they said, well, they don't follow the agreed-upon doctrine, and we have no control over that. But we expect that everyone would practice that doctrine of non-interference.
But isn't the mere fact that you see them in action,
that they're that interference to some degree, I suppose that could be true, if they are not changing history or perhaps not changing the earth or damaging the earth in any way, I don't know if that's non-interference. I always thought it was interesting when I first heard that, because I think that's something that I find in indigenous cultures too, is that practicing of non-interference. I've had graduate students at the university come to me and say, are you going to South Dakota this weekend?
And we're going to have you answer
okay.
that question in a moment. Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke is with us. Gene Steinberg. He's Chris O'Brien. You're in
the Paracast.
Not just an alternative to the mainstream media. We're the premier independent talk radio network. We are GCN.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
Time waits for no one. That's why you should hurry to not miss the Freeze Dry Guy's end-of-year case lot sale. Go to freezedryguy.com or call 866-404-3663 to receive 20 to 25% off Mountain House freeze-dried foods. Mountain House, the gold standard in long-term storage products, include real freeze-dried meats, entrees, eggs, fruits, and vegetables. Yes, 20 to 25% off now. Also receive 30% off other selected Mountain House foods and receive 30% off selected Packaway brand dehydrated foods. Just call 866-404-3663 and ask for the Freeze Dry Guy. Plus long-range patrol ration eggs and ham at superb discounts. But these are extremely hard to find and nearly gone, so call today. Ask about our LRP ice cream bars too. Some items limited to stock on hand. And remember, the Freeze Dry Guy pays for shipping to your door within the lower 48 states. Order now. Don't miss out on the Freeze Dry Guy's end-of-year case lot sale. Call 866-404-3663 or visit freezedryguy.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Ardy, tell us about South Dakota.
Are you going to South Dakota, or are you going to North Dakota? You know, they want to know what my travel schedule is. And so I would say whether I was going or not, or what I was doing. And then they just sit there in my office, and they might ask me another question. Finally, I'd just say, do you need a ride to South Dakota? Do you need to go where I'm going? Well, yeah, if it isn't out of your way, or if it. And I first encountered this with a group of elders in a town called Eagle Butte, and there were some carpenters across the road that were building a house. and these three elders were sitting on this wall. And I walked over to where they were, and they said, you know, they're doing that all wrong. And I said, well, who are you talking about? And they said, those carpenters. They said, the first time a wind comes, this is what's going to happen. And I said, well, why don't you tell them? And they said, oh, no, let them do it their way. Not gonna mess with that. And I see that a lot among indigenous people, that idea is even if you know somebody's doing something wrong, you let them learn from it. You let them make their mistakes and learn from it and not interfere with the process. And I don't know if that's a direct connection because of being either descendants of the Sky people or the Sky people being their ancestors, or whether the Sky people are just people who come and help from time to time.
Well, if the Sky people are their ancestors, they interfered.
Well, if you believe the Maya, many of the Maya tell me they are the star people, that they came, their ancestors came here and stayed, and that they didn't, the ancient astronauts didn't come and enslave the Maya and make them build these cities and then head off to another planet, that they came to Earth, they liked what they saw, they built their cities, and they stayed.
They found the daughters of man to be fair. Well, Ardy, we've been talking a lot about star people. How about this very rich tradition dealing with the underground and cave systems? In the Maya land, it's called Xibilba. It's where the spirit goes after this incarnation to then rebirth into a new incarnation. What kind of stories and beings do we see in these traditional stories and myths relating to underground scenarios?
Well, you're talking about the passing to Xibalba, right? I mean, they go underground.
Exactly. And there's entities that inhabit that space, the Wheats Monster and other entities.
Well, you know, I got no information on that at all. I wasn't asking about, after death or after death experiences or the death process or anything. So I don't have any information on that. I can't respond to that.
So how about subterranean dwellers? There's a fairly rich tradition of entities that live underground and come out at night, for instance. The Aluches are one example of that.
Well, the Aluches are little people, and they, live in the jungle. And I was at a place called El Rey, which is on the outskirts of Cancun. And Stevens and Catherwood had passed by that place, but they decided that the structures were so small that it wasn't worth putting into port and going and checking it out. So they just passed it on by. And so I wanted to go over and take a look at El Rey, and I met this man on the beach. And my cab driver took me over there because when I got in his cab, I said, do you know anybody around here that knows anything about the little people of El Rey? And he took me to this guy who lived on the beach. And he was telling me that, he said, well, the little people, they can take any form. And so he was telling me that they live in the jungle, but he said, he still believed that I said, well, do they still live in El Rey? And he said, well, if I told you they did, then all these tourists would be out here looking for them. He said the Aluches they're capable of many disguises. He said much of the time they masquerade as lifeless forms, but he said they can also impersonate snakes and monkeys and parrots and bats and turtles. But he said mostly they impersonate the iguana. Now think about if you've ever been to Tulum and seen the basking iguana, or even in El Rey, it's the same thing.
There's a bunch of them.
And he said, pardon?
You see them everywhere.
They're everywhere. And he said that the little people like to impersonate iguana. And he said that people just walk by and never realize that they've seen an Alucha. And he said that they're just blind to what's going on. And he told me that the Aleutians were ancient spirits and that they've lived on Earth since it was formed. And he said his grandfather told him that the Aleutians were the first inhabitants of the planet. And that when the Maya came, they befriended the little people. And then I asked him, because in my culture we have, the little people. And so I said, well, are they angry entities or are they playful? And he said, well, they can be both. He said, like children, they're diminutive, so they also have a personality somewhat of a child. They can be happy little creatures, and they love playing tricks on humans. But if you make them angry, they're also like children. He said they'll throw tantrums, and they can be very vindictive.
Right.
And he said
they're a classical trickster form.
Yeah. Well, and there's stories, in Native American cultures where they steal children and take them away. Among the Cherokee, we often say if you have a baby boy that comes up missing, the little people have taken him, and the little people give him all these tests, and that if he passes the test, then they keep him and they teach him all the medicines of how to cure people. And they say not very many people pass. That's why there aren't very many Cherokee doctors. So that was a story I heard growing up,
Do have some other questions if you're into fielding them. This one comes from Randall, our good friend Ufology, who's almost up to the 5,500 post level at forum.theparacast.com. And, he's really into the ETH, the extraterrestrial hypothesis. And he's wondering if you've been able to locate or find any clues that might help us identify what star system on what modern day star chart the star people actually come from. Now, you mentioned that there's quite a number of them. Do we have an idea of where they inhabit in our universe?
Well, I've been told that some of them come from the star system of Orion or Pleiades, but it isn't something that necessarily is information that's given to the people, as I understand it. Very few of them ever have had occasion where one of them asked where they were from, and they pointed to a star system, and they looked it up and discovered that it was the Orion star system.
We had a really fascinating episode of After the Paracast this past week, We talked about reopening old wounds. And this is with regard to certain controversies on some of the UFO abductions. We have an After the Paracast episode pretty much every week to accompany the regular episode of the Paracast. You can get a copy of it as part of the Paracast Plus premium package. To check out more information, go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com, and you can sign up in a jiffy and get also ad-free versions of the Paracast. We have Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke with us, with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code GENE when you check out.
Adam Miller here with Midas Resources. Today, December 12th, 2014, gold opened at $12.1660. A 1-ounce gold coin can be purchased for $12.6134, $630.67 for a half ounce, or $315.33 for a quarter ounce. That's $12.6134, $630.67, and $315.33.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? Wait a sec. Gold and silver is going up while Congress is trying to settle on the next debt increase. And there's no end to this madness. That old 401k and IRA can be converted into physical gold without tax consequences. I explained this in my book, 10 Reasons to Buy Gold. Don't let time slip away. Call for your free copy today, 800-686-2237. Get away from that Washington spin and get honest answers about gold. 800-686-2237. The book is free, 800-686-2237.
It's that time of year again, and you know what that means. Cold and flu season. But don't worry, herbalhealer.com has you and your loved ones covered with our safe and natural products. Cold and flu fighters like beta-glucans, olive leaf antiviral capsules, grapefruit seed extract, HHA 4-herb capsules, elderberry power, and respirate. And don't forget about oregacillin for the lungs, normally $34.95, on sale now for only $25. Vitamin D3 120-count soft gels, only $9. Whole body and homeopathic detoxes for the lungs, kidneys, liver, lymph, and brain, normally $26.95, now just $20. Herbalhealer.com also offers correspondence courses to teach you how to handle your health naturally. And as always, new customers get a free 128-page catalog with your order. Visit herbalhealer.com and click the Winter Specials button to save on our natural cold and flu fighting products. Herbalhealer.com, healing the world with nature, one person at a time, since 1988.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right, that's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100-foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-91-STEEL. Lock in your price now. Call 866-91-STEEL. That's 866-917-8335.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Chris is asking the questions of Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, author of Sky People. Chris?
The legend of White Buffalo Calf Woman of the Lakota.
Right.
I think she mentioned that she was from the Pleiades, correct?
Well, I've never heard that, and I lived and worked among the Lakota for a very long time. I have nieces and nephews who are Lakota, so I've never heard that.
I've stumbled on that information in my research travels. Okay, here's another question from Randall. Again, that was posted at the question bank at forum.theparacast.com. What principles of the social sciences have you applied to the analysis of the stories that you've gathered, and what conclusions have you been able to draw from them? We've, of course, been talking about quite a number of them, but is there anything that has to do with the upcoming time period, for instance? Can we ascertain any sort of trends? Are they ever going to show up and allow themselves to be revealed, or reveal themselves to us, disclose, if you will, their presence?
Well, I've had no indication of that is anything that's necessarily going to happen anytime soon.
So they're not going to come and solve all our problems, or harvest us as like human cattle or something?
Well, I think they're already doing that, and I don't think they need our permission or necessarily. The people that have been abducted and been experimented on. One person told me that they say that it's a very low percentage of people who remember the abduction and remember what occurred to them, and those that do, people don't believe them anyway.
We have another question from Randall, who calls himself ufology at forum.theparacast.com. I've never heard of this particular term, Ardy, but he's wondering if there's any suggestion that the, quote, backward walking people, unquote, might be here to alter our ecology to make Earth more hospitable for them. What are the backward walking people? Does that ring a bell?
The backward walking people was a story I heard down in Belize. I was at a wedding reception of one of my driver's relatives. We kind of crashed the party, and as everyone was leaving, I was downstairs with a group of women, and that night there had been a UFO sighting over them on Mopan, and so they were talking about it. So I asked them if they had ever seen a UFO, and one of the young women there started telling me about the backward walking people. And she told me that they had been visiting her grandfather's place ever since she was a child, and her grandfather said they were there when his father was there. But they have the ability, according to her, to walk both backward, to swivel their heads in a manner that it looks like they're walking. They can walk in both directions without turning around. They're not backing up. They're always looking forward. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, shades of Linda Blair in The Exorcist. Or an owl.
Yeah,
Owls can do that. Owls can swing their heads around 180 degrees.
She said she was never close enough to see exact features, but she said she saw their spaceship. She said it was long like the cigars her father bought in Havana. She said it was round and long but huge. She said, I'd never seen anything like that. She said, but her papa said their skin was like a snake, but their features were human-like except for their heads and their legs and their skin. And she said, I should say they were shaped like human, but she said, I never got close enough to see their skin. And she said, Papa said that when he was a boy, the men hid women from them because they said they stole women. And I asked my driver about it because this young woman was related to him, and he said that he had heard those stories too growing up, and he said he did in fact see a UFO, a long cylinder-shaped craft. He said that glowed orange and then turned gray, and he said that it had the ability. This creature had an ability to reverse itself, and its head pivoted, and it could walk backward, but was facing. But it was facing forward. He said, I know this doesn't make much sense. He said, but I can't explain it any better. He said, but I didn't think of it as human, so to speak. I thought it more as a creature of some kind that didn't belong here. So he said they were big. He called it a giant creature.
Shades of Paula Stonebrook.
Who's Paula Stonebrook?
She claims she had a reptilian alien lover.
Oh, really?
Was quite something. Yeah, she was quite enamored with his prowess, shall we say?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, she wrote a book back in the 90s that got quite a bit of notoriety. Even by the mainstream press, it was so over the top that they even sniffed around. And she's a jazz singer, a pretty good voice. I've heard an album that she did. A very bizarre story with lots of salacious details.
I've never heard of her or read her work.
Yeah, she's definitely a character. You could Google her and come up with some interesting stuff. But she did indicate, I think, that it was some sort of reptilian type entity. Well, here's one of our new posters at forum.theparacast.com, HughesCroft6, is wondering, if there was any interview or encounter that really stands out from among the rest on your 7-year research sojourn down in the Mesoamerican world. Is there a particular story or type of account that really impressed you the most, more than any other?
I was in Copan, Honduras, and I'd kind of wandered away. When I went to Copan, I didn't have a guide or anyone. I hadn't hired anyone. A driver took me there, dropped me off, and went back to Belize. And I was just wandering around the ancient city. I spent 2 or 3 days just wandering the city and then the ancient city. And I was out in an area that it's a little ways off from the ancient city, but it was supposed to be the place where people that the housing where people lived. And as I was, I just found a place to sit down, and this elderly man came up to me, and he said, he started telling me that he had heard that I was collecting stories, and I said, yes. And he said, what do you think of our ancient city? And I said, well, it's amazing. And he told me he was born in 1904, and he said that I was 5 years old when Spenden. Now that was Herbert Spenden, who was the assistant curator of the American Museum of Natural History in New York.
Got more to come with Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke and Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Free from the shackles of corporate America, we're the place for independent thinkers. GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
On Facebook, on the news, and in conversations with friends, we're bombarded every day with advice on how to be healthier, from gluten-free and non-GMO diets to how much exercise and sleep the body needs. But how much have you heard about alkalizing the body? AlkaVision Plasma pH drops are a holistic and natural way to get your body's pH levels back in balance. Just a few drops in water will help your body rid itself of harmful waste. And even the healthiest of diets can be complemented with your daily use of AlkaVision Plasma pH drops. Who isn't looking for more vibrance, vigor, and energy? Now buy 2 bottles of AlkaVision Plasma pH drops and get $10 off your order. Visit alkavision.com or call 800-518-7615. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops are packed with a powerful combination of the most alkaline minerals and compounds. Open the door to greater health, vitality, and zest for life. Alkalize your body. Supercharge your health. Call 800-518-7615 or head to alkavision.com.
The Genesis Communications Network is one of America's premier broadcasters of captivating talk radio. We thank you for listening. Now, just imagine, there are thousands of people who are just as passionate about radio as you are. But what you may not realize is how easy and affordable it is to advertise with us. Radio commercials for your business could be heard on hundreds of radio stations across the U.S. every day. We can help you by creating an effective radio advertising campaign for your company. From script writing to producing your radio commercial, just like the one you're listening to right now. No other network provides the level of customer service we do. When it comes to radio advertising, we are your one-stop shop. And no matter how big or small your business is, we can help. Email us at advertise@gcnlive.com, and an experienced advertising executive will help you take the first step towards driving more customers to your business or website. Advertise@gcnlive.com. Easy, affordable, effective.
Time waits for no one. That's why you should hurry to not miss the Freeze Dry Guy's end-of-year case lot sale. Go to freezedryguy.com or call 866-404-3663 to receive 20 to 25% off Mountain House freeze-dried foods. Mountain House, the gold standard in long-term storage products, include real freeze-dried meats, entrees, eggs, fruits, and vegetables. Yes, 20 to 25% off now. Also receive 30% off other selected Mountain House foods and receive 30% off selected Packaway brand dehydrated foods. Just call 866-404-3663 and ask for the Freeze Dry Guy. Plus long-range patrol ration eggs and ham at superb discounts. But these are extremely hard to find and nearly gone, so call today. Ask about our LRP ice cream bars too. Some items limited to stock on hand. And remember, the Freeze Dry Guy pays for shipping to your door within the lower 48 states. Order now. Don't miss out on the Freeze Dry Guy's end-of-year case lot sale. Call 866-404-3663 or visit freezedryguy.com.
Hi, my name is Richard Dolan. You're listening to the Paracast.
This is such a fascinating journey. Well, exploring not just ancient legends and myths or perhaps realities, but stories that make it to the present day, trying to integrate one with the other. Chris, we have more questions to focus on, or you want to finish that answer, Ardy, first?
Yes, well, anyway, he told me that he had been working at that. He said Spendon was the first to hire him, and he said for him I was just a runner. I'd run and get things for him, and I carried water. And he said he paid me 10 cents a day in U.S. dollars. But he told me that if I learned English, he'd give me more money. And he said, by the time I was 8, I spoke English. I learned very fast, he said. And they paid me 25 cents a day. And he said, I worked for the Carnegie scientists, too, came here. And he said, they paid me 50 cents a day because I could speak English. And he said that
the last
while
of the
he was
big-time spenders. Jeez.
Right, but this was in the early 1900s, too. But anyway, he said that one of the things that he and his friend would do is they would go into the caves up in the mountains. And in the caves, they would get these artifacts, and they would bring them back, and these archaeologists would buy them from them. And so they would spend their time, when the archaeologist was taking time off from work, they would spend their time exploring caves and getting these artifacts. And he said they entered a cave one time, and he said they came upon a silver man. And he told me that it was a skeleton of a man in a silver suit. He said his suit was silver from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. And he said, but all that remained inside the suit was a skeleton. And he said from the size of the suit, he was a small man, smaller than me. And he probably was no more than he showed me no more than a meter high. He said his head was covered, he told me, with a hard metal-like tube, he said, almost like a can. He said, and there was a strange tablet with strange characters on it lying beside him. And he said it wasn't Maya writing, because we knew Maya writing. And he said this writing was foreign to us. And he said, we took it back to the archaeologists. They said it was unknown to them, too. They had no idea who wrote it. And he said that the helmet that was covering his head, he said he could describe it as a large can. He said it was attached to the suit, and it had a hose that attached to the front of the suit. And he said there were different colored buttons on the breast front of the suit. And I said, well, what did the archaeologists do when you brought this discovery in? And he said they were extremely excited. He said they took it into one of the tents and began examining it. And he said, I overheard one of them say that they had to send it back to the USA immediately to their university. And he said, I believe that what I found was proof that the Maya had a connection with the stars. And that's why I always called him the Silver Man from the stars. I thought that was a good name. And he said, the next day I saw a box in the tent, and I think they packed him up and shipped him to their university, he said, because I never saw it again. And he said, all my life I've wondered about this Silver Man. I'm sure the scientists, he said, in the U.S. have studied it and restudied it, but they keep it all a secret. He said, I made a mistake, I believe, and it's a mistake that I can't correct. He said they only gave us $2 for him, but in those days we thought we were rich. But he said, the wise men told us stories when we were boys about a small race of men who visited Earth. And sometimes they lived up in the mountains for weeks at a time, and they bothered no one, so the people left them alone. And if they did see them, they avoided people. And he said that the elders say they came in silver discs that spit fire, and that they wore silver suits. And he said, I think we discovered one of them who died, and they put him in the cave, and we disturbed his gravesite. And he said, I will always be haunted by that idea. I said, well, did you tell the elders what you found? And he said, oh, no, we were afraid. He said, I think we always knew what we did was wrong. He said, but after that, we never hunted for artifacts again. Our conscience wouldn't let us, he said. He said, for some reason, I think we knew we had given up an important part of our history. And only the scientists who took it know the truth, and they're not talking.
Wow.
He said, your government probably knows, too. And I think our government probably knows, he said.
It reminds me of the story, and this is a question in our forum from Dave M. He's wondering about the retelling the story of the snowplow driver who picked up an ET who was left behind in a snowstorm. He said he found that story really fascinating. Why don't you give our new listeners a recap of that story? That was a very, very intriguing account.
Well, that happened up in Alaska, and that was with an Alaska native. He was a snowplow driver, and he searched me out because he had heard from the superintendent schools in this district where I was that I was collecting UFO stories, and he came in and he said, I really have a story to tell you. And he proceeded to tell me that it was and what was interesting is I was in the town that night. I was in that village because I was snowed in, but it was a huge snowstorm and I couldn't get out. And he said that he had a partner, and his partner was coming from one direction, and he was going the other direction. And he said that all of a sudden, as he's plowing this road, and the visibility is very bad, he comes upon this circular craft parked in the middle of the road. And he said he stops, and he sees this being outside the spacecraft. And then all of a sudden, the spacecraft takes off, and this being runs into the woods. And he said then the being comes back, and he said he gets out because he said, I'm not, he said, just as I'm trying to get out, this being comes, and he's at my window, at the passenger window, and he's blaming me for the spacecraft. And I said, well, did you talk to him? And he said, I was so scared, and so I couldn't even think of things to ask him. But he said, I went all the way, on my route. He said that this being was very fascinated with his snowplow and how it worked and everything. And he said, but he could appear and disappear at will. And he said, on our way back, he said, they would plow up to a certain way, and then they'd come back and plow again because the snow was coming down so bad. And he said, I came upon the spacecraft again. And he said, then there he is. He's out of the cab, and he's back in front of the craft and getting ready to leave. And but he said, this really happened to me. And he said, I was so excited and so scared at the same time that there were so many things I wanted to ask him, and it wasn't until after he was gone that I thought of any of them. Well, can you imagine that happening to you?
Shades of E.T.
What'd you say, Chris? 3, 2, 1?
Yeah, shades of E.T. being left behind in the movie. I guess he had a way to phone home or at least phone the ship and have him come back and grab him.
Before someone phones us. We're talking to Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, author of Sky People. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Wishing you the brightest of Christmas seasons and best wishes for the new year from the Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best. Available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Alex Jones here. For the last 2 years, I've been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to design a nutraceutical formulation that has truly life-changing health benefits. So many other formulations out there contain toxic ingredients, synthetic additives, and even GMOs. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. Now is the time to secure Ancient Defense for you and your family. Visit InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
What good is a Big Berkey water filter?
We get that question a lot here at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. And in a word, the answer is protection. Protection from water main breaks, E. coli contamination, environmental chemical spills, pesticide runoff, chlorine taste and smell, and all forms of fluoride. Plus, Big Berkey water filters are the original gravity water filter system and most trusted on the market for a reason. Tested by multiple independent NSF EPA certified labs, they are the gold standard in water purification. At only 1.7 cents a gallon, a single set of filters can last for 5 to 10 years. That means big savings. Big Berkey, the one that's powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get a Big Berkey today at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. GCN listeners receive 5% off all ceramic filter systems. Visit our website or call 1-877-99-BERKEY. That's 877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
Do you have relatives and friends that are convinced there is no need ever to prepare for any kind of emergency? Are these also folks you buy Christmas presents for? At 30dayfoodsupply.com, we can solve both of these problems at the same time. Go to 30dayfoodsupply.com or call 541-229-0010. We can ship your Christmas presents directly to them. Choose from our original $99 30-day food supply, our long-term storage vegan burger mixes, and other oatmeal, soups, porridges, beans, and granolas for everyday use. All products are non-GMO, MSG-free, and vegetarian. Most are gluten, soy, and nut-free. Call 541-229-0010 today. Oregon Trail Foods and 30dayfoodsupply.com keep prices low, cutting out the middleman by buying directly from their producers in Oregon. Remember, only $10 ships your entire order to the lower 48. Visit the website 30dayfoodsupply.com. Call 541-229-0010. 30dayfoodsupply.com. 541-229-0010.
This is Kurt Sotheby, author of UFO Mysteries, and you're listening to the Paracast.
You know, Ardy, as you were talking, I was thinking here, what would happen if I ever picked up somebody who was strange? I wasn't the kind of person, though, to pick up somebody on the road. I know that's a legend that people pick up somebody on the road and you either have some consequences or it's just normal. Yeah. But I'm not into hitchhiking. Yeah. And I'm not into picking up hitchhikers. I did it only once back in the 70s.
And his name was Norman Bates.
Well, her name was, no, let me not get into that. I took her to her destination. She left.
Well, you know, I used to do that all the time, is pick up people, because I'd be on the reservation and I'd see somebody walking and I'd just stop and say, "Where are you going? Get in." But I would never pick up anybody on the interstate or, you know, someplace like that. And I've stopped at gas stations and people come up to me and say, you know, "Could you give me a ride?" But I don't do that anymore. You know, I think the world is too dangerous now. But if I'm on the reservation, I'll pick them up because, you know, I just basically I trust people, I guess. But if I were on the interstate, I wouldn't do it.
Well, it's like where our society has changed.
It has.
Years ago, you know, you just hang out on the porch. The doors were open to your home. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And after I left that neighborhood, it became mostly a combat zone. Now those neighborhoods have become very ritzy, very expensive to live in. But during those years, everybody hung out with everybody. It was very relaxing. You didn't worry about somebody coming along on the street who might represent some kind of potential danger for you. That didn't happen.
Shoot you. Well, you know, and I can remember when I was young, you know, my dad used to pick up hitchhikers all the time. Most of them were military men. Most of them were soldiers just trying to get home, you know, and I don't know if in those days the military didn't give them, you know, bus tickets home, but they were always out on the road hitchhiking them. My dad would always stop and pick them up. I can remember that.
How the world has changed, become so much more dangerous. Maybe we do need the sky people to come back and show us the way.
Well, it might help.
Is there an expectation of that? Is there an expectation amongst these people that someday whoever visited them, whenever, will come back here to set things right? Again, if there's a non-interference policy, of course, that's inoperative. But otherwise, what are your feelings about it?
Well, I was told by one gentleman I interviewed that if things ever got really bad, they would come back.
I think they're overdue.
Well, look at all the people that went down to that part of the world waiting for the aliens to show up during 2012.
Right.
Yeah. What a buzzkill.
I know. I wasn't one of them because, you know,
I went down a month beforehand. It was dead as a doornail.
Well, and even the Maya, you know, they just laughed about it.
Oh, I know.
They thought it was just, you know.
They laughed all the way to the bank.
What's interesting is is they also took advantage of it. You know, there were a lot of people taking advantage of tourists and saying,
the prices were doubled in places.
Well, and not only that, you know, my first experience at Palenque, I was stopped by a young man who said, "Do you want to see Pacao, our astronaut?" And I'm thinking, you know, here he's just taking advantage, you know, of his, you know, he doesn't care that it's a bastardization of his culture. All he cares about is if he can convince me that that's a picture of an ancient astronaut, I might buy this plaque of his, you know. And I see that all the time, you know, where in order to make a buck, people exploit their culture.
Well,
and a lot of that was going on in Mexico with this 2012.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it was really
and they
ridiculous.
were laughing behind the people's back. You know, they said the world, you know, this isn't going to happen. When one calendar ends, the next one begins. It doesn't mean the end of the world.
Yeah, it's like your odometer, you know, turning over 100,000 miles. You know, it's interesting, Ardy. I was among one of the last groups that was allowed to go down into the tomb, actually chamber, there in Palenque and see the sarcophagus in there. And it was about a month or two later that they literally walled it up, and nobody can go down there. Not even the scientists, I think, can go down there.
I actually got permission to go down there, and I had a guide whose father was working on that excavation.
Yeah, that was. I know him actually. It's either Chato or Alfonso Morales. Their dad, Don Mosaic, was one of the guys that helped excavate that.
And you know, he told me that his father would never go back down there after, you know, they opened when they slid the cover off the sarcophagus. He said all this cold air just rushed out and rushed up, you know, out of the pyramid. And he said, my father would never go back down there. He would never return. And it frightened him so much. But he was able, because of his position and, you know, his family ties to Palenque, he was able to get me down in and to see that tomb. And this was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he's now the chief ENA anthropologist there.
Yeah,
at the site. He's one of my brother's tour guides, actually.
Is he? Where's your brother work out of?
He's in Albuquerque, but he does. He lived down there in the area for almost 6 years and set up the business. And they've been running tour groups, custom tour groups through there now for over 15 years.
Yeah, I just go on my own. I do all my own arrangements and everything. And I have a little school I support in Piste. And so I go down there frequently for the little school. In fact, some of the proceeds from the sale of this book will go to that little school in building their library and in helping kids that can't buy tablets and pens and stuff, so they, you know, most of the time don't go to school.
Yeah, we need more people like that helping indigenous people, especially the educational systems.
Well, I want to give back, you know. I mean, those people gave a lot to me and, you know, shared their knowledge and their experiences with me, so I try to give back.
Right, that's the least you can do, yeah.
Right.
Well, we're just about out of time, Ardy. Can you tell our listeners where they can find more of the stuff that you do?
Well, I have a website, and it's being updated. I was trying to get a couple of my. I think I've got a couple of articles on there that's been published, and since the first book I've written, and trying to get some of my other stories, my fiction stories up there. But it does give an idea of where I'm going to be and various interviews I'm having, and so they can find it there. And I encourage everybody to, you contact me. My email is there, Ardy@Sixkiller.com. And
the site is Sixkiller.com?
My website is Sixkiller.com, right?
Okay.
And my email is Ardy@Sixkiller.com.
All right. You can find us at theparacast.com. That's theparacast.com. If you want to check out our premium service, it's plus, Plus, .theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. We offer for a modest monthly or annual subscription fee an ad-free version, high-resolution version of the Paracast, the After the Paracast exclusive podcast, and lots more at plus.theparacast.com. Also, if you go to theparacast.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter, you get a free copy, ebook version of Secrets of the Mysterious Valley from our own Chris O'Brien. Chris's site is OurStrangePlanet.com, and you can check out his latest books there. If you order a copy of his books direct from him, he'll sign them for you. How about that? Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, thanks for joining us on the Paracast.
Well, thank you, and thank your listeners, and it's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible, Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.